She sat quietly near the window of the VIP lounge, sipping tea and reading a travel magazine, unaware that, across the room, whispers were building like a storm. She must have wandered in, one flight attendant muttered. Probably thought it was public seating, another added. She doesn't look like a member, someone else smirked. All eyes turned to the woman in the oversized sweater and scuffed sneakers. No designer luggage, no sparkling jewelry, just a worn leather tote, a soft-spoken presence, and calm. The tension didn't take long to arrive. A manager approached her with a polite but practiced smile. "Ma'am, this area is reserved for first-class and elite passengers. If you're lost, I'd be happy to guide you to the public seating area." She looked up, confused. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." But the staff had already decided otherwise. Without credentials, without flash, without obvious wealth, she couldn't possibly belong there. What they didn't know, she wasn't just a guest. She was the wife of the man who owned the airport. And when he walked through the security doors just minutes later and saw what was unfolding, he wouldn't just correct their mistake. He'd change everything about how they judged the people they were supposed to serve. Her name was Noor Aftab, calm, observant, and often mistaken for ordinary. At 33, she carried herself with a quiet grace that made her presence easy to miss. Unless you were paying attention. She wore comfort over couture, preferred handwritten journals to social media, and never felt the need to explain who she was to anyone. She was traveling that day to visit a school she had helped fund in a remote mountain village, a place where the internet still flickered and children shared pencils like gold. It was part of the charitable foundation she ran quietly behind the scenes. Her husband, Imran Aftab, had offered to send the private jet, but she declined. "I like to move through the world without making noise," she had said with a smile. So she booked a commercial flight, business class, and with her ticket came access to the newly renovated VIP lounge, the same lounge her husband's company had designed, built, and funded as part of a major airport modernization project. Noor entered with her boarding pass and ID, just like everyone else. She smiled at the staff, found a quiet corner and poured herself a cup of tea. Nothing about her said power. Nothing about her demanded attention. And that was exactly why no one gave her any. Instead, they whispered, wondered, assumed. The designer-clad influencers nearby exchanged looks. A lounge employee scanned her outfit, loose linen pants, a navy scarf, and plain white sneakers, and made a silent judgment. It didn't matter that Noor's name was on the private donor plaque just outside the lounge entrance. It didn't matter that her foundation helped fund medical aid for airport workers. None of it mattered because she didn't look like someone important. And in a room built for the elite, appearance seemed to matter more than identity. So when a staff member approached her with a forced smile and asked, "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right place?" The old familiar feeling returned. She had been here before, not this exact lounge, but this exact moment. Judged, dismissed, forgotten. Only this time, the people doing the judging had no idea who she was married to, or who was already walking down the concourse with a security escort and a phone in his hand. A man about to remind them that quiet people often have the loudest impact. "Ma'am, do you have a lounge pass?" the attendant asked again, a little firmer this time. Noor looked up from her tea, surprised. "Yes," she said, calmly reaching for her boarding pass. "It includes lounge access." The woman took it, glanced at it quickly, and sighed. "I see. Business class. That section is usually over there." She gestured vaguely toward a less elegant seating area near the vending machines. "This side is typically reserved for platinum and priority members." "I wasn't aware there was a divide," Noor replied politely. "The receptionist let me in without an issue." "Well, sometimes they miss things," the woman said, lowering her voice as if she were doing Noor a favor. We have very high-profile guests today, and we're trying to maintain a certain standard. I'm sure you understand." Noor looked around. Several people were now watching. One woman tilted her head in amusement. Another man sipped his espresso, clearly enjoying the scene. An airport employee, possibly a supervisor, stood nearby, pretending not to hear. "I understand perfectly," Noor said softly, her voice steady but unreadable. The attendant hesitated. "We just want to ensure people are where they're meant to be." Noor's expression didn't change, but the meaning in her words did. "So do I," she said, folding her boarding pass and returning it to her bag. Behind her, the murmurs returned. "She's being difficult. She's lucky they even let her in. She probably used someone else's ticket." And yet, Noor didn't defend herself. Not because she couldn't, but because she refused to. Her value didn't rise or fall with the approval of strangers. She was not there to impress. She was there to travel, and maybe, just for a moment, rest. But even that, it seemed, required permission in a world obsessed with surface. As the attendant lingered awkwardly, unsure how to proceed, the lounge's glass doors slid open with a quiet whoosh. And everything changed. A man stepped in, tall, dressed in a crisp navy suit, with airport security on either side. His stride was purposeful. His face was focused, his presence unmistakable. It was Imran Aftab, Chief Executive Officer of Aftab Aeronautics, Billionaire, owner of the International Terminals Expansion Project, including the lounge they now stood in. He walked past stunned travelers, his eyes locked on one person, his wife. "Noor," he said warmly, his voice echoing just enough. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long." The staff froze. Noor stood slowly, composed. Only a little. Imran turned to the attendant. "Is there a problem here?" The woman's face drained of color. "No, sir, we were just verifying." "Verifying what?" he asked, calmly but firmly. "That my wife, who helped design the wellness suite in this very lounge, was worthy of sitting in it?" Silence. A few feet away, a guest audibly gasped. Someone else lowered their phone. I had no idea," the woman stammered. "No, you didn't," Imran said, gently placing a hand on Noor's back. "And maybe that's the real issue." He turned to the room. "This is Noor Aftab," he said clearly. "She's not just my wife. She's the co-founder of the Aftab Foundation, which funds education and healthcare programs in over 20 regions, including the one you're flying over on your way to vacation." Noor looked away, uncomfortable with attention. But Imran wasn't done. "She does not need your approval to be here. She helped build this." And with those few words, the dynamic shifted completely. Because now, the woman they had tried to escort out had just been reintroduced as the one they were all sitting because of. For a full 10 seconds, no one in the lounge said a word. The same people who had rolled their eyes at Noor just moments ago were now shifting uncomfortably in their designer seats, suddenly unsure of how to sit, how to look, how to recover. The attendant, still frozen in place, struggled to compose herself. "Mr. Aftab, please accept our sincere apologies. We were unaware of Mrs. Aftab's—" "No," Imran interrupted gently but firmly. "You were aware of her appearance, and that was enough for you to decide she didn't belong." The truth of it landed heavy. Noor remained silent, standing beside her husband, not hiding behind him, not needing to be defended, but simply allowing him to use the platform he had, to say what she didn't need to. Imran turned to the lounge supervisor who had appeared near the desk, pale and tight-lipped. "We'll be reviewing your staff training procedures," he said calmly. "The purpose of this lounge was never to make people feel smaller. It was to make people feel seen, valued, especially those who give more than they ever take." He looked back at Noor. "Like her." A few guests, the ones with enough decency to recognize their mistake, lowered their eyes. A woman who had laughed earlier now pretended to scroll through her phone, suddenly very interested in flight updates. Then came the shift. A young woman from the wellness desk stepped forward, holding a cup of herbal tea. She approached quietly, her hands slightly trembling. "Mrs. Aftab, I didn't know. I just wanted to say thank you. My sister was one of the scholarship recipients from your education program. She's studying nursing now." Noor's expression softened. "That's wonderful," she said warmly. "Tell her to keep going." Another man, a quiet figure in the back, cleared his throat. I work in facilities. Your foundation helped cover medical bills for my daughter last year. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you." Noor smiled. "You don't have to know someone's name to treat them with kindness." And that was it. Not revenge, not humiliation. Just a lesson. Quiet, firm, unforgettable. Imran glanced at his watch. "Our flight boards soon." But before they left, he turned to the staff one last time. "Remember her face, not because she's my wife, not because of what she owns, but because next time someone like her walks in and doesn't fit your picture of important, you'll know better." He reached for Noor's hand, and together they walked out of the lounge, past the glass doors, through the terminal, and into the kind of freedom only earned by those who never let others define their worth. Behind them, the lounge remained painfully quiet, not because they had left a scene, but because they had left a standard. And from that moment on, no one working in that space ever forgot her, because the woman they once tried to send away had just taught them what dignity truly looks like. The ride to the gate was quiet. Noor and Imran walked hand in hand through the terminal, past passengers who barely noticed them, past the boutiques and cafes and hurried travelers. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, glancing down at her. She nodded. "I'm used to it, but I'll never stop wishing it wasn't so common." Imran let out a breath. "You shouldn't have to be used to it, Noor." She smiled softly. "That's why we do what we do, isn't it? So that the next woman in a simple scarf and sneakers isn't treated like she wandered into the wrong world." They reached the boarding gate and were escorted to their seats without fanfare. No press, no spectacle, just the quiet understanding between two people who had chosen a life built on purpose, not performance. Back in the lounge, the staff remained visibly shaken. The manager held a closed-door meeting. The attendant who had questioned Noor spent the rest of her shift silent, her confidence shaken by the realization that she had judged someone extraordinary by nothing more than her outfit. And across the airport's admin offices, word spread quickly. The owner's wife had been disrespected, and she had left without a raised voice or angry demand. Only a lesson, a reminder that you never really know who you're looking at. Later that evening, as the plane reached cruising altitude, Noor sat by the window, watching the clouds pass. "I didn't need to be defended," she said softly. "I know," Imran replied, taking her hand. "But sometimes the world needs to be reminded who they're looking down on." And together they sat in quiet peace, knowing that Grace had done more in silence than any power ever could by force. She never posted about the experience. She never shared it with the press or turned it into a headline, because Noor Aftab did not need to go viral to make a point. Her presence was the message. She reminded everyone watching that power does not always wear a suit or flash a name badge or announce itself with arrogance. Sometimes it sits quietly by the window, sipping tea, asking nothing but to be treated with respect. And when that respect is withheld, the world doesn't need outrage, it needs reminders. Graceful, firm, undeniable reminders that kindness and humility are not weaknesses, but strengths. Have you ever been judged by how you looked, where you sat, or what you wore? Or have you seen someone else dismissed unfairly, only to later discover their true worth? Share your story in the comments. You never know who it might encourage to stand tall, even in silence. If this story left you thinking, moved you, or reminded you of something real, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We honor dignity. We challenge appearances. And we remind the world that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one they overlook. Until next time.